I am live. How's it going, folks? Welcome to Boring Stream. Let's see, I don't think we have anybody yet. It just came on, so I'm gonna wait a second here. Do 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 do. Waiting for Dan Redbeard. But no, I'm right here. What do you mean waiting for me?
All right, Mr. Amon Hillman, thank you for blessing us with your presence today. You are a quite the controversial figure when it comes to religion, classics, ancient texts. So, is your title? You're a linguist. You're a classicist. What is your official title?
Hail Satan, Danny. It's nice to be here, by the way. Thank you so much.
Are you a Satanist?
Am I a Satanist? Oh, God. Those people bother me so much. I can't be a Satanist. I'm sorry.
They bother you? Uh-huh. What bothers you about them?
The whole religious side of things. Yeah, no. What am I?
Well, you are a religious scholar, right?
No, I'm a classicist. Religious scholars, no, we eat those for breakfast. Yeah, no, I'm a classicist.
Okay.
What I do is...
What is a classicist?
It's somebody who is a specialist in the translation of ancient Greek. Some people do Latin too, but that's, Latin was for hut-dwelling Romans, you know what I mean? It's just not to the level that the Greek is. The unique word count alone is off the chart for Greek. It is a superior language that devoured languages in antiquity. It just ate them up, boom, boom. And this is normal in any language over time. Any language over time. Right? Some become strong and they become dominant. Others die out. The Greek was the behemoth. It was the dragon of antiquity. And modern Greek is nothing like it.
How long have you been studying and reading and translating Greek?
For 30 years now. And every classicist knows it's our honor and duty to guard the muse. And to keep those ancient documents within the flow, within time itself. So we're dragons, man. That's what classicists really are. Unfortunately, most classicists today, they're focused on things that are more to build careers and garbage, essentially. So a lot of texts, a lot of these ancient texts that we've got, they aren't translated even. I've got an entire book that I brought to show to you that is from the 1800s. It's Galen. And these things are untranslated. It's all in Greek. I have the physical copies sitting in my bag.
Wow. So when you first decided to start studying, I guess the better way to put this is, what pushed you in the direction to be interested in this stuff? Did you have a religious childhood or a religious upbringing, or what got you into this?
This guy is, look at how I froze it. That's hilarious. This guy is crazy intelligent, man. Like fucking amazing. Stick around if you can and listen for a bit. It sounds like a surfer. Because he gets into some pretty wild shit. Like, this is not tame at all, by the way. When you go on Louisiana High Ride, I'll jump off. Just let me know when you're doing that. Beautiful. But yeah, no, this is good. I'm gonna shut up and let you guys listen to it until I get bored, and I'll change it or something. I'm just messing around, hanging out, not doing anything special. My Crohn's disease, the pain in my joints. I get really bad inflammation in my joints. It's fucking going mad. So I'm trying to find something to take my mind off of it. Because I got painkillers. They're working, slowly working. But anyway, get my mind off it.
Jesus got me into this. Yeah. I actually.
When you were how old?
Oh, God, when I was like 13.
When you were
man. 13.
Yeah, so you
no.
were religious when you were a child.
Oh, yes. I was born again. Love Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. I used to teach at a mission. Are you kidding me? I used to convert people. I used to have mostly drunks. And I don't know, we were like a place for them to go and to sober up. But they had to listen to my crap. Oh, excuse me. They had to listen to my sermon in order to get that meal. Because that's how we spread, brother. Do you understand?
I don't follow what you're saying.
I converted souls into mission.
You converted souls to Christianity when you were 13?
No, I started doing that when I was like...
So this is the Danny podcast. It used to be called Concrete Podcast. Eamon Hellman is the guy who's talking. Fucking Danny's kind of a moron, to be honest. I'm not trying to be a dick. Like, he gets great guests and everything, but bro man is like asks stupid questions. You wonder like if he actually listens to the half the guests, but this guy blew my mind wide open.
17.
When you were 17?
Yeah. I was teaching Sunday school class too, because their Sunday school teachers sucked.
Really?
Yeah.
How does a 17-year-old get to start teaching Sunday school? Did your parents get you into this stuff?
Oh, of course, yeah. Through the family and through some very intelligent teachers like Dr. J. Vernon McGee. Oh, God, beloved Dallas theologian. You know what I mean? Dallas Theological Seminary. I went there for 3 months, and their Greek program was so bad. I went to the president of the university. I said, hey, it's not up to stuff. His name was Walford, John Walford. And I said, your program isn't up to snuff. Your Greek program is terrible, right? So I went on to university to get a PhD and
so going back to the early childhood stuff.
Yeah.
When you were in your teens, you said you were teaching Sunday school.
Yeah.
What particularly were you teaching, and was there some point in your life that led you to question the teachings of the Bible and the teachings of the church and everything you knew when you were young?
Is there a point?
Like,
there was an exact point. It was the night I went out. I turned 21 and I went out to a big country western bar and I was like, excuse me. And that was it. Done. Virgin sacrificed, right? I got there through Aristotle. So here's what happened. I saw how bad the standards were on the Christian side for ancient Greek. And I said, I've got to follow a track to be able to get there. And it went through the sciences. And I think what happened was when I was 21, I just cracked. I was reading Aristotle and the pure, unadulterated glory of his reason.
And you're talking about Greek? You're reading Greek?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So how did you learn Greek at 21?
Because I went to a special high school, first of all.
Okay.
Shout out to the people from Special Projects.
Special Projects?
That was his first name. Everybody, you had to test to get into it, right? Everybody that I was around is somehow involved in, military, government, stuff like that. We won the chess championship 2 years in a row. National chess championship, right? Bunch of nerds, right? Total nerds. So I knew I would be going to learn about Jesus at a seminary someday because that was my bent. I save people, you know.
And you said when you were saving people, you were saving alcoholics, drunks, rather?
They were the easy pickings.
So what did they do? They just came to you. They said, my life is terrible.
No, it's a mission. So they check in for the evening. They got to sit and listen to us preach. Then they give them dinner. They're mostly there to
Okay.
get fed, you know.
Right.
You know, charity, so to speak. But
Right.
I was the one who was saving souls. That was my thing. It's delicious. Have you never saved a soul?
Probably not, no.
No? Oh, you should try. Yeah.
We'll have to learn. You
It's
teach me.
yummy.
Okay, so you're doing this in your early teens, saving souls in a mission. It's called a mission. Okay. And then you decide in your early 20s you're going to learn Greek at the high school you're at.
No, I started that was my high school. Right after that, I went to the University of Arizona
Okay.
and started their classics program there. And I went through in 3 years and ate it up and went to Tel Megiddo at the time and did a dig at Tel Megiddo in Israel.
So you said you did a classics program at the University of Arizona. When you first went into that program in college, what was your goal? What were you looking for? Anything? What did you want to learn?
Jesus.
You wanted to learn about Jesus.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, all right.
I think so. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this, man.
You're
I'm
here
trying
for
to
Jesus.
I'm trying to understand your curiosity here. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
I'm trying to dig deep into the psyche of Amon Hillman.
Okay, I love it.
Okay, so that's when you learned Greek.
Yes.
Was it hard to learn Greek?
Yeah, and you never stop. You never stop. I'm not kidding you. I can take a text right now, throw it in front of any classicist in the world, and say translate it, and they'll be like, yeah, no, nonus. I can do that with nonus right now. Throw it in front of 98% of the classes out there. That's this baby. You know.
So, like, the point of me showing this is he gets there. It's a slow cooker, but trust me. So, this guy's a classicist. He reads ancient Greek. Ancient Greek's an incredibly powerful language. Today, let's look up Greek real quick. Language, words in the Greek language. Words in Greek language. So, however, more dense its vocabulary is the more descriptive and more specific a language can get. But there's a good payoff here, guys. I promise. The number of, come on, Google, come on, get with it, Google. How many words the Greek language contain? 5 million words. Okay, number of words in English language. There are around 170,000 words in current use in the English language. So Greek is 5 million words right now today, and around 170,000 words in English right now today. About 47,000 obsolete words. So in the vernacular and the vocabulary of Greek is incredibly descriptive. Now, it didn't have 5 million words during ancient times. It's about 250,000 when most languages had around 20,000 or 40,000. This is incredibly important to this live stream because, as you can see, he's talking about Jesus, and he's talking about the languages that Romans spoke, and of course, Jerusalem was all part of the Roman Empire at that time. And he also says, yeah, some people spoke Latin, but it was more of like a high loft language. He's saying the language that everybody spoke and during Roman times was Greek, the Romanized of Greek. But anyway, the reason he gets to that is because dude here goes through and starts dissecting ancient Greek texts of various types, but namely the Bible. And it's going to tie in to some really far out stuff. It's going to blow your mind. Slow cooker, stick with it. If you want to see what's up, you got any questions, throw them in the chat. Gina G is amazing.
You know what I mean?
So they had a circular dance floor.
Yeah, right. Is that unimpressive?
That's
Well,
very
move on.
impressive. For 4,000 years ago, it's very impressive.
Well, move on then, because when I was in the vineyard of Jezebel, these guys that went nuts, they got up at night and they sat there and they talked and they told me what was going to happen to me
what did they say was going to happen to
on
you?
successive nights. They said a troop of demons will assist you to bring the Antichrist. Yeah.
Who said that?
Two guys on two successive nights.
Who
and
were
they
these
went
guys?
Nuts. There were people with us on the excavation. Right, we're working during the day, and in the evenings we're sleeping, and people are waking up in their sleep and talking to me, and then going nuts.
Is that thunder?
Yeah.
This is amazing. We're
Oh,
doing
yeah,
this
we're-
podcast in the middle of a thunderstorm.
Yeah, we got a storm.
So these guys told you what about the Antichrist?
They said I would be protected by a troop of demons.
A troop of demons.
Yeah, and they said it on successive nights. So, like, the first guy, Moshe, he went totally fucking nuts, right? He sat up in bed at 2 a.m., started talking to me like a puppet. The next morning, runs off. Boom. The head of the kibbutz where we're staying comes to me. She says, "What's going on?" I said, off he goes. I don't know. Right? The next night, I didn't think it was odd. I love Jesus at this point. I didn't think it was odd. But on the next night, the dude that they replaced him with, he did the same thing. He sat up in bed. He gave me the same message.
You'll be protected by
A troop of
a
demons.
troop of demons.
Yeah.
For what purpose?
To bring the Antichrist.
What did you make of that?
I thought he was nuts the first time he said it. And the second time he said it, I thought, wow, this place is like, what happened? Is there some kind of material in the ground or something out here?
Making these people crazy?
You know what I mean? Making people nuts. The head of the kibbutz came to me and she said, "What's going on?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "What's going on? 2 of your roommates have gone totally nuts." I said, "Hell if I know." Yeah. Yeah. What would you expect me to say? When they claimed that I was able to levitate through doors at the university, and they had a inquiry as to my state of demon possession.
When was this?
When I worked for St. Mary's University.
So this is much later.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try to stay on track.
Let's stay on track.
Let's try to stay like in a,
You see what happens?
Are you sure you're not the Antichrist?
There's just a rain cloud that follows them around everywhere.
Yeah. What is the Christ?
What is the Antichrist?
What is the Christ? If you have to know the Antichrist, you have to know the Christ.
Right.
It's a Greek word
For
applying a drug to your eyes so that they may be open.
that's what the Christ means in Greek.
Yes, it's from the verb chrio, to be stung by the gadfly.
Huh.
Who's the gadfly?
Who is the gadfly?
Yeah, I don't know. Socrates said he was. It's a thing they had going on. Remember, they have orgies and stuff like that, so you better buckle up, right?
But what does that have to do with the gad? I mean, you think orgies?
Oh, no, oestrus, to be stung. It's a state of mania. They call it in Greek oestromania,
Okay.
to be in an altered state.
Right. Okay. Anyways, let's go back to you're in Israel, right? And you're doing this excavation. You're finding all this stuff. These crazy people come up to you telling you that you're protected by a troop of demons.
Yeah.
How long did you stay there? And then what did you do after that?
A year and a month.
Okay.
And then I decided, okay, I've maxed out what's my interest here, and
Okay.
came back and enrolled in another program, which ended up master's program, ended up sending me to a lab where I cut brains.
Cut brains.
Yeah,
Okay. What were you cutting brains for?
to identify neuropeptides.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. On the science, I
Is
wanted.
this as you're studying bacteriology?
No, it hadn't gone to the back T, but it's what led to the back T. I wanted to bolster my science
Okay.
education. So I did a lot of like,
Neuropeptides. What's a neuropeptide?
yeah, it's a peptide that is active in the brain as part of a signaling system So we talk about communication between the hypothalamus and the pituitary and how puberty is regulated. That was a big one. We were looking for the peptide that brings on premature puberty.
Do you hear that?
That's those are souls swirling around outside.
Dude, that's loud.
Yeah.
Is that rain?
Yeah, rain or wind blowing the rain.
God damn. So the neuropeptides that were responsible for puberty,
Yeah, the onset of puberty.
what made you so interested in that?
They had a grant for it. Wasn't mine. They had a grant.
You just got thrown into it?
It's for premature. Yeah, it's for people who have early onset puberty.
Okay. Is there a problem with that?
Well, hell yeah, there's a problem with that.
What's the problem?
Yeah, all that stuff is timed with growth. So if your
What causes it?
peptides go astray in the brain,
But
Yeah.
what makes the peptides go astray? Is there some sort of external influences?
we didn't know at the time what it was. That's what I was doing. This is where I am in.
So just to catch up here. So this guy is also, as I said, a classicist, but he's also has a degree in biology, right? So what's really cool here is what he's talking about is how, and it kind of shows his kind of life and how he went. He started out as a street preacher as a kid, right? Working in a mission. Homeless people wanted to have dinner and they'd preach to them and then they give them dinner, you know? So he's a street preacher. Grew up in a heavily religious, Christian home. I don't think it was Baptist, but I could be wrong. So, he's all in and he loves Jesus. He wants to know more and more about Jesus. He's incredibly curious, and that leads him on his path to life. He's obviously intelligent, tests into a class for, like a high school. He called it special projects, but essentially it's just a, special ed, gifted, opposite of special ed. And he talks about other nerds and, chess stuff. And then he talks about how he's going to University of Arizona. And while at University of Arizona, he's doing a religious course. They send him out to what's called a kibbutz in Israel. Kibbutz is like a working farm, like collectivist farm in Israel. It's basically where a bunch of, people come together and farm and live together, but they're also at this kibbutz doing archaeology, doing excavation and whatnot. And during this time, he has a very freaky experience where his roommates on successive nights wake up and tell him that he's going to be, protected by a horde of demons. This crazy, experience happens. The really cool thing I like about Eamon Hillman is he doesn't jump to conclusions. He doesn't say, and because that happened, this means this. He's just basically saying these are things that happen that are fucked up. And then when he says that, then after that, he goes off part of his biology course. He goes up and they're dissecting brains of dead people, obviously, trying to figure out how neuropeptides work. And he's basically talking about late onset of puberty really messes up people's development and growth, obviously. Right. So that's why he's explaining this. So this all ties into stuff though. So the neuropeptides, the puberty, late puberty, all this stuff ties into something. It comes to an overarching theory that he gets to, and it's deep stuff. It's deep water, folks. I'm not going to lie, right? But I had to listen and watch this a few times to really get what he's saying, because the problem is Danny, the host, he's a little bit ADHD. He jumps around, but Eamon Hillman jumps around a lot on his timeline. It can get confusing. So I'm going to put it back on here and shut the fuck up.
The experiment, it's not an experiment, it's just investigation, but you're tagging, you take an antibody conjugated substance and it's either something that fluoresces or it's a dye of some sort.
Right.
And you localize where these peptides are in the brains of these things that you sacrificed. Yeah.
Animals?
Yeah, we used to drill holes in animals' heads and then put in a little catheter, a little tube. And then you can insert a substance, anything you want. Anything. You could insert orange juice if you wanted. But we would insert substances and then take another collector and see what the hypothalamus did. And it was a beautiful finding. Because they were mapping at the time, people were mapping how the brain works. And this is how they were figuring out what the hypothalamus does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I was proud to be a part of it. It was a good education.
How long did you do that stuff? How long did you do those studies?
A couple of years.
A couple of years.
Yeah, I taught endocrinology too.
Oh, did you really?
Well, everybody in the grad program had to.
You taught endocrinology.
Yeah. Yeah. I did the brain part of it. So, and you had to. Graduate students had to.
Like the hypothalamus and the pituitary and
The third ventricle, man. You know what that is?
what's the third ventricle?
It's an open space in the middle of your head,
Really?
and it's filled with a fluid. It's the water of life.
The water of life.
Yeah, and this fluid has all
Did people
this...
in ancient times try to drink that water of life from people's heads?
Oh, you know they did. Do you want to see the texts?
I'm sure the text can verify this.
Baby brains, man.
Baby brains.
Yeah. No, they used to bleed them too. Yeah.
So what is this, Steve? What are we looking at?
This is the third ventricle.
Beautiful.
Okay. The third ventricle. Is it just,
blue
does it
thing.
say it's just liquid in there or what?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
a pristine pool. It's beyond
What is the purpose of it? What is it? What is the function?
carry the messengers.
That's the scientific description of what it does.
Yeah, actually it is. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Because it's communicating with all the tissue that it's overlapping. It's communicating.
Okay.
And that little special area of the brain,
Yeah.
there's the three ventricles,
Right.
is like pristine. That has to be the purest, totally beyond the barrier for any sort of infection, right? If you've got an infection there, you're dead.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, lots of brains. I cut up lots of brains.
So, okay. Now, at what point in your life did you start writing this infamous dissertation that got suppressed by the heads of the department in classics when you started writing about the use of drugs in antiquity?
That's from that exact point.
Okay.
I picked up Professor Romer came to me.
Professor Romer.
Yeah.
This is
Frank
University of
Romer.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, at the time he was at University of Wisconsin. I think he went out somewhere in California. But Frank Romer, and he said, "Hey," he said, "I know you're." When I was on the science side, he said, "I already had him in classics, right?" So he knew what my interests were. And he said, "Here, we have a whole bunch of documents that nobody's ever translated from Greek. Have at it." It was like the greatest.
Where do you find
gift.
those documents?
Everywhere they've been for the last 2,000 years.
Where?
Just sitting there
Where on his desk?
in libraries.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Nobody reads them. Classicists don't do it. You know why?
Why?
Because they're hard.
They're hard.
Because these Greeks are smart. They're smart. And these how many classes do you think know pharmacology? Yeah.
I have no idea. Probably not many.
Zero.
Zero.
Yeah. They don't do the medical stuff. It's a shame. It's a shame. So
Well, that's just like any field, right? A lot of people who are experts in certain fields or certain disciplines, they don't have a wide variety of skills or disciplines as well. They're typically just in one lane. You got to talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Or you got to be a jack of all trades.
Interdisciplinary. they call it.
Interdisciplinary. Yeah. That's a good word.
Love that. You keep one foot on either side of the fence. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. So I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison to work with the country's best medical historian.
What's his name again?
John Scarborough.
John Scarborough.
Yeah, and he had a knowledge of the medical side as well.
Okay.
But he was also a great Byzantine. He did a ton of the Byzantine sources. He was one of the translators of the Greek magical papyri. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Come
Can
on.
you explain what the magical papyri is for people who don't know?
It's a collection of Greek works. It's all about some of the dirtiest cult magic stuff you've ever seen. People who say they know Gnosticism, they haven't read this thing in Greek. They don't know what they're talking about. This is the one where we get the all the body fluids that are being used for the sake of medicine.
Okay.
And
It's in this papyri.
yeah.
And who knows? And
one source.
okay.
One source.
All right, we'll get into this more later. But let's let's go back to
So I was studying with him.
studying and developing your. He gives you these papers, these texts to translate.
Yes.
And this is when you first discovered the use of drugs, or the idea of drugs being ubiquitous in antiquity.
Yeah, I was studying ancient pharmacology. That was what my area was. That's what I was forging.
Okay. And you already knew about Galen, right? You'd already been studying Galen.
Yeah, I know. And I had been to a conference in England, and the London Times said, "Wow, this guy's work is the last wild frontier of classics." You know, and they're right, because nobody does this stuff. Mm-hmm. Nobody.
For
does
people,
it.
also to give some more context to people who are listening, who was Galen? Can you explain who Galen was?
Yeah, Galen is a 2nd century physician he works for Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, and he's probably one of the greatest intellects of Western civilization. Definitely. He wrote thousands and thousands and thousands of pages, and probably 10% of it has been translated, if 10%.
Wow.
And nobody goes near the pharmaceutical stuff. Now, in 2013, I saw for the first time a dissertation was written in which the person translated Galen's Theriac to Paiso.
What's a theriac?
A theriac is a multi-drug component that's used to balance a poison or death bringer, they call them.
To balance a poison or death bringer. So like
Yeah.
an antidote?
Yeah, exactly an antidote, but they called it a galenic reaction, unrelated to the reason of Galen.
Oh, okay.
A galenic reaction, that's the reaction. That's to bring the balance of the one that can kill you with the one that can keep you alive. Bring those together. That's theriac, baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. What's the point of that?
To die and to be born again.
Die and to be born again. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Do you want
How much Galen have you read?
Considerable. Yeah, considerable.
How many? Give me an idea. Like how many pages?
Oh God, thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah.
And he's written how much?
22 volumes at 1,000 each, so somewhere around 22,000 pages.
And where does all this literature exist? Like, where is it being held?
It's held currently in a book that's sitting out in my.
You have all of it.
Yeah, I got it from Johns Hopkins.
Wow.
Yeah, because Professor Scarborough was in with all the book traders, right? And they were like, "Oh shit, a Galen has become available."
Okay.
Can I run out and get Galen and
Yeah, go grab it.
show you?
Go grab it.
He's got an original Galen book.
1840.
Oh my goodness.
This is wild shit, Steve. Yeah. What do you think about this, man? Are we still rolling?
Yeah.
Good. Here he comes. Here he comes with the original.
1840.
This is from 1840,
Yeah, what's the date say on it?
1827.
There you go. Look, I was not
Galen
even
Opera
close.
Omnia Kuhn 1827.
Yeah, I was off a few years.
So
So open it up and you'll see it's basically, Danny, it's a medical text for physicians in in the early 1800s. Wow. Right? What are they studying? They're studying Galen. You asked me who Galen was? Guess what? He's the dude who dominated medicine from the 2nd century when he lived until that book that you're holding. Right? This is the last set.
you're talking the 2nd century BC, right?
Yeah. No. Anno Domini.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Marcus Aurelius. Yeah. This is his physician. By the way, he says in here that Marcus Aurelius is a total dopehead.
What language is this?
Greek on the top, Latin on the bottom. And the Latin translation is garbage. Right?
Wow, man, this is wild.
Yeah. Now, what you're holding there is volume 14 of a 22-volume set. from Johns Hopkins. As you can see, those bastards put their mark all over it. By the way, isn't
Yeah.
that beautiful paper?
Look at this, everybody.
That's centuries old. Centuries. Think about it. Look at that. Right? Oh, it's gorgeous. It's a work of art. It's
It
a work
really
of art.
is.
But
How
that
many pages is this? 800 pages.
800 pages. Now think about it's volume 14, which is
That's
his,
one of 14 books.
Yeah, it's one of 22, but it is 14, and 14 is all about the pharmacology of the antidotes. And nobody looks into that stuff. And Galen says Marcus Aurelius is a total dopehead. He is on way too much.
What was he on specifically?
The Theriac.
What does the Theriac mean?
It's a combination of plants and animal products that is meant to balance a cult ritual drug called the Black Death.
The cult ritual drug that was called the Black Death.
Yeah. This is from Nero's library. Right?
Okay.
Nero has his arch physician get this formula from the East for the Theriac. The Theriac is meant to balance the cup of Lady Babylon.
Okay.
So,
All right. You're kind of losing me here. I'm having trouble following.
yeah, go ahead.
So let's go back
Okay.
to. I feel like we're starting to go down a rabbit hole where it's going to be hard for us to get out of.
Yes.
So I want to make sure we explain this story in a linear fashion so people can follow it and don't get lost. You're studying Galen, right? And you're working on your dissertation, and what happens next?
Oh, so for my dissertation, I did it on Roman pharmacy.
Okay, right.
And
Roman pharmacy.
Roman pharmacy.
Okay.
Nobody's written a work on Roman pharmacy, and I had already done a translation and commentary for a master's thesis. That's usually what they give to doctoral students. And I had done one for a master's thesis, and I was like, I'm not doing that again. So I'm going to write a text that's just kind of a general Roman pharmacy text so that people can learn about drugs in the ancient world. And the committee told me, take out the chapter on recreational drugs, or we're not going to give you the degree. And no, we eat those for breakfast. Yeah, no, I'm a classist.
Fuck it. I fucked that up. Sorry about that. I was just going to say, this really gets to about his book, The Chemical Muse. And you can say this Chemical Muse book is actually his thesis. And it's thesis with the chapter left in on recreational drug use in ancient times. That's not something anybody wanted to talk about, but yeah, it was an incredible amount of recreational drug use in the ancient times there. Let me see if I can find this again here because I fucked that up. I'm sorry about that, folks.
Okay.
It's a death to
Person.
I think I'm about right here.
They're constantly trying to control bleeding and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, look, I mean, it was really interesting to me reading your book.
I'm trying to find it here. They're still talking about it.
Thing. This is the head of the department. And by that time, I had
we
seen
go.
so much stuff that the Romans were doing. I was like, oh my God, I understand what's going on. They're
And by the way,
building
guys, there's a link I'm pinned up there.
we can't
It's
get
an actual interview. You
beyond.
can download it.
That doesn't
take all on your
exist.
own time
We should
on
be
my
able to go
Google
right
Drive.
through that thing with
Just
these
grab it.
texts. We can do that. Anyhow, so I took the material and I sent it to Macmillan. I just scrubbed it and then I sent it to Macmillan, and they accepted it. Thomas Dunn accepted it, and it was fantastic.
Macmillan is what?
It was St. Martin's Press.
Publishing
Yeah, it
company.
used to be publishing company, St.
Okay.
Martin's Press. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what became the book, the famous book that you created, The Chemical Muse.
Correct.
And once you decided to scrub the chapter from your dissertation and any sort of reference to drugs whatsoever, and then they accepted it and gave you your PhD.
Any references to recreational drugs?
Recreational.
Because there are a whole bunch of drugs all over it, right? For healing, right? I mean, drugs that you use in anesthesia.
Right.
what did they use? Fantastic.
What was the response after your book, The Chemical Muse, was published?
The Bryn Mawr Classical Review came out, which is the big reviewer. And a European professor, French, came out and said, this book is dangerous. He said it shouldn't be read at any university, anytime, ever. And he was like,
What year are we talking?
oh, this was 2008.
Wow.
2008.
Okay.
And so it was roundly ignored, put into the guy said, this guy obviously has a drug agenda. I was like, no, let's just talk about the drugs, because they don't read these texts. Now that same journalist has gone and talked to the aforementioned Bryn Mawr Classical Reviewist, and now they're writing a book, and this is about shamanism, all the same stuff, all the same material. It's because they didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And
You were the first one to sort of uncover this stuff and make it known.
I was not the first. I would say I was the one who took it and took the big picture of it. I was the first one to bring the science side.
Who was the first one?
Over Carl Rock.
Carl Rock.
Yeah, no, because he said they're using something in the Eleusinian Mysteries. Right? He was already looking at, he didn't have any problem with the concept that he coined, entheogens. Right? These are substances that are in theos that bring that divine being into you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole class of drugs they were using.
Have you ever had any conversations about Carl Rock with the stuff that you discovered and this, the stuff you talk about in The Chemical Muse?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure. Once The Chemical Muse was published, they sent it to Dr. Rock for a
review?
Consideration, because he's the only one who had been on the list of people who had talked about drugs, and he got shamed. He got completely shamed.
Well, look, it seems like this idea and the idea of drugs being used back then is becoming more and more accepted. I mean, you got people like Brian Mararescu and Graham Hancock. I think Brian's new book's his latest book is The Immortality Key, where he talks about the mystery cults of Eleusis and the ergot.
Yeah. I know Brian.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How did you guys meet?
Professor Rock sent him to me to get the medical stuff.
So you guys spoke about when he was working on his book?
Yeah, we had a couple of interviews before when he came up with the idea. Gave him a couple of interviews about what the sources are and what the extent of the stuff is. He said, "Do you mind if I mention you and Joe Rogan?" And I said, yes, go ahead and do that. But if you do, you have to mention that Jesus Christ was arrested in a public park with a naked boy at 4 a.m. screaming, "I'm not a trafficker."
You made sure you told him he needed to say that.
He had to say that exact phrase. And so,
so he didn't.
so he chose. Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, look, I mean, it was really interesting to me reading your book, and I was really gripped by what you've sort of uncovered, which it makes a lot of sense when you really think about it. That life back then, life in antiquity was fucking terrible. And people didn't die from heart disease and from diabetes and from old age like they do today. They died from hand-to-hand combat and plagues and famine.
Yeah.
And to live back then was a miserable existence for the most part. Infant mortality was like 50%.
Yeah.
And they needed these drugs just to get through the day. And the warriors fighting these wars, they needed to take these drugs to suffer these insurmountable wounds they would have to suffer in battle. Can you talk a little bit to that and to like some of the details that you uncover in your book about what life was like and how hard it was and the amount of death and plague and famine and how these drugs were used to curb these sort of ailments?
Yeah. The best way is to resurrect the soul of Hippocrates and to look at the works that he wrote called The Epidemics, in which he describes all the diseases that people are getting, what they're suffering from, all the ailments. Oh, my God. You know what herpes does when it goes untreated?
No.
Oh, Hippocrates has descriptions of it. They call it herpes because their word herpeton is their word for a snake or something that slithers, something that crawls. Because that's what herpes does when it goes untreated. It crawls all over you. It rots you.
Thank God I don't know. I
Eats
don't know
you
about
out.
that.
You get descriptions of this kind of stuff, and you see life on a different, at a different level. 1/3 of women were having death as a side effect of birth.
1/3 of women were dying from childbirth.
Yeah. The problems are bleeding.
Right.
They're constantly trying to control bleeding and whatnot. Yeah, with drugs. Oh, miserable. And, about 1/3 of the population of the youth from in the late teens, that's getting eaten off. They become soldiers, and a certain number of those get sacrificed. Right? It's not a cheapness. They don't have there isn't a sense of futility. It's looked at as a sacrifice.
And what point in history are we talking about?
Oh, God, as far back as the Bronze Age, all the way down to about Byzantine.
The Bronze Age is what, older than the 5th century?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. In the best time, the Bronze Age, it was late Bronze Age, around 1200 to 1100.
1200 to 1100.
Yeah, that's
where some of these oldest texts that you've read come from.
Yeah, the Mycenaean Linear B stuff comes from like 1600 BC, that's spectacular. They've got Dionysus and all that stuff. I worked with Emmett Bennett, who was a Navy cryptographer who studied, who cracked Linear B. And in it we have the name Dionysos. He's the son of Zeus, the thunderer. And it was a gorgeous, gorgeous world to be able to follow that. But that's where the Greek can take you. Sign up for courses now.
Sign up now. It's linked below. Well, let me ask you this. And this is sort of like broad strokes questions.
Yeah.
How did your development your understanding of these ancient texts and reading this ancient Greek and even the Hebrew, everything that you've read, how did that change your perspective on religion and Christianity and Catholicism? You were raised, what, Christian or Catholic?
I love Jesus, man. I was, I don't know.
What was your family?
Baptist.
Baptist. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once you start to understand the history and the texts, how did this change your worldview of religion? And what sort of like misconceptions did you have that were shattered by this understanding?
I had a long-term relationship with a muse. So the whole time that I'm developing this educationally. Oh, look, I was just going to bring the Antichrist.
Oh, it's happening, guys.
The Antichrist is coming, everybody. Tornado warning. Don't bring him yet.
Okay.
Hold him off.
Okay.
Hold off Zeus. Yeah. So these texts that you're reading and that you're translating, are these the original sources of religion, of Christianity and Catholicism and baptism and all this stuff? Is this like the originals?
Yeah, this is the language that held that, all of those texts. So the New Testament's all written in ancient Greek, right? what you call the Old Testament, and I'm going to shock people with this one. What you call the Old Testament, which people say is written in Hebrew, right, which is not a language that I work with. I had to take a little bit of modern Hebrew when I was there, just because it was part of the, education. And but the text that you think is written in Hebrew is not. It's a Greek text that's written in the 3rd century. It's a Hellenistic text called that you call the Torah or the Old Testament. That is not an original Hebrew text. Now, how can I say that? What we have is the Septuagint that I'm talking about. It's the Greek Old Testament. Do you understand Greek Old Testament?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's the oldest form that we've got.
Okay.
Okay. The whole big deal about the Dead Sea Scrolls was they said, we finally have some Hebrew, because none of it survives, right? Hebrew is only an 8,000 word, ancient Hebrew, 8,000 word, unique word count language.
Okay.
Which puts it in the realm of something you could expend by the end of your breakfast. 8,000 words. That's not a lot.
Okay. And the Dead Sea Scrolls were all in Hebrew?
The Dead Sea Scrolls were fragments in Hebrew and fragments in Greek, and everybody assumed, this is the original in Hebrew, right? Because now we're following church history. You and I live in a time in the time stream. We live at a time when we think that there was an original Hebrew text of the Old Testament, but there wasn't. It doesn't exist. Right? And to show people the Greek, what's the proof? What's the proof? The proof is when you read the Septuagint, that is the Greek Old Testament, it does not read as a translation. It reads as an original. It uses Greek idiom. It's like a fingerprint on a language, and it's got Greek.
How can you tell it reads
Greek fingerprints?
How do you discern the difference, whether it be an original or a translation?
Oh, you can tell. It's easy to tell because colloquialisms don't translate, right? And so it's like tagging it. So you're testing this language to see to see what its age is.
Okay.
So you tag it with certain things, and one of them is colloquialisms, right? The other one is technical vocabulary. You cannot translate from a higher technical degree to you can't translate from a median technical degree to a high technical degree.
Okay.
You can go down the slope. You can take something that's not technical, right, and make it more technical, right? You can force that. But you can't drift upstream.
Right.
So if the original is going to have the highest degree of technicality.
Yes. So the Dead Sea Scrolls were not the highest degree of technical writing. They were lower. They were lower than the Greek. What was the word? The book you're talking about?
They're Hebrew back translations because at the time, the Dead Sea Scrolls, they're Hebrew back translations. So they took the Greek.
Of what specifically?
They took the Greek and they said, how do we translate this into Greek?
Okay.
That's why you lose all the technical terms because they didn't have them in their language.
And what I'm asking is what? God, that's crazy. This is the first podcast I can remember where the lightning has been this crazy, this loud. So the Dead Sea Scrolls came from where? What were the sources of the Dead Sea Scrolls?
So those caves in Qumran, right? They've dated these things to probably, I've heard as early as 1st BC, but all the way up to 2nd Anno Domini. So somewhere in that range, somebody is taking the Greek text that we know is already established because people are quoting it. Right, we know, for example, they had the Book of Enoch in Greek because people are quoting it in Greek. So that's how you can like track your library. Where's your library at the time? Right, that's how you track it. By the way,
have you read the Book of Enoch?
Yeah, I read the Giza fragments of it. I can say that much.
What do you think about all these people talking about Anunnaki aliens flying around and building pyramids back in the day?
I think it's silly.
You do? Damn it! You know how many podcasts we've done with people who claim that they're experts on the Anunnaki?
Yeah, seems to be a big area. But they were drug users, bro. What can you expect? That's what they taught in the Giza text. It says they taught the women the art of drugs.
So these weren't aliens; they were just drug users. They were just drug addicts.
They were giants, bro.
They were giants.
Yeah.
Like real giants.
Gigantos. That's
Steve, are you crunching?
Oh, you can hear that.
Oh my God!
No, I liked it.
It's this is the ASMR podcast.
Holy
there's
shit,
stimulus
dude.
everywhere.
They taught them the drug craft. That's what the text says. And you don't understand, man. They've got Medusae at the time. You say, what?
Wait. Go back to giants.
Yeah.
What are you talking about, giants?
That's the Greek word, gigantos.
Giants meaning physically they were huge people?
No.
Okay.
Right? No. They had a superior knowledge of the drugs, and they had a group of women who were called the Medusae. And the Medusae could hit you with a drug on an arrow and paralyze you. And then they would take you and do things to you. And that's how a group of these women functioned. That's how they hunted. They hunted men. You can imagine the society.
Of women that hunted men.
Yeah, you have to kill 3 men in order to get married.
Huh.
Yeah. And they don't really marry you. They just farm men.
And when is this? What time period was this?
This is Bronze Age, late Bronze Age.
Bronze Age.
Think 1200, the peak of 1200, say BC.
1200.
This is when the great queen Medea is around. Yeah. And
So back, okay. Well, this is great. I'm loving this. But back to my original question: how fundamentally, how did your understanding and learning all of this ancient Greek change your understanding of how religion is preached today and the story of the Bible?
it's a fairy tale. It's a fairy tale. What they teach now and do now is not even a hair's breadth of semblance to what they did originally. Yeah, you don't understand. A mystery is not a word that means a question or something you don't know, right? The mystery is the performance that brings you through death back into life. And once you've been initiated into that environment, you're given keys, things to open up, a way to decode what's being said so that you understand what's at the higher level. Now, if you're like Jesus, you do that with 12 children. People don't realize that. The apostles are just children.
Pump the brakes. We'll get there.
Oh, okay. Oh, shit. Okay.
We're going to get there. Don't worry.
Okay.
This, that's so loud. Where was I going to go?
This is the best day of my life.
Is
Censorship.
it really?
Thank you for allowing me to
I was
come
going to
here.
say, you've had a terrible life if this is the best day. In Greece, in Athens, we're talking the Iron Age or the Bronze Age, when they started to develop these mystery cults of Eleusis. What time was this?
Yeah, this is late Bronze Age. Late Bronze Age.
Late Bronze Age. And
Couple of generations before the Trojan War.
a couple of generations before the Trojan War. And this is when they were experimenting with these drugs that would these psychotropic drugs like ergot and other things.
Yeah.
What were some of the other drugs they were using back then?
They were using the ones that make you crazy. So there's several classes, and one of them are the death bringers. That's one we talked about. Another is the ones that make you crazy. And
Permanently?
no, temporarily. Okay. And they would have people cured, quote unquote cured, because they've got antidotes. We even have stories about people going out and he's like, "Oh, my daughters, they went off on their cult thing and they're still not coming down. What do we do?" And he has to go whip them up an antidote
Right.
for them to stop being in this state of mania. And it's things like hyoscyamine, scopolamine, and atropine, containing huoscuamos
Interruption, sorry. So this is incredibly important, right? You see, so he's sitting there talking about These are drugs that are used in ancient times, and it's something that people had not really touched upon before. That he has discovered through these ancient texts and translations in ancient Greek, and it talks about the various different drugs that they would use. Scopolamine kind of became into the zeitgeist recently again, is a drug that they were using in South America. Essentially, it turns somebody, it's called a zombie drug. Essentially, put under this drug, you have no memory of what you have done, and you'll completely compliant with whoever tells you to do it. So there's a big problem with South America, not a big problem, a problem where tourists, people like that will, get slipped scopolamine. And next thing they like, yeah, go to your ATM. Okay, now let's into your hotel room, and they take all their stuff. And there's even been a documented use of someone who was on scopolamine that was helping the people who were robbing him move the stuff into their vehicle. Like he's helping him move his own furniture. They have it on camera. Like the police are investigating. Like, oh no, you helped him. Like, well, no, I was on scopolamine. So ergot, another drug, hallucinogen, like LSD or mushrooms or anything like that. These are all things people are using. The Deathbringer stuff is very interesting to me because essentially what you're talking about is you're living on the cusp of life and death, and you're using, quote unquote, the Theriac to balance it out. So you don't actually die, but you get close to it. And that could go back to a lot of anesthesiology where, you're today when you're taking a surgery, you're in this, but it doesn't seem to me like they're in an unconscious state. They're in a conscious state with this quote unquote Deathbringer. And I know that a lot of times they take the venom of various different snakes and put them together. These recipes for these drugs may have been lost to time, but there's something that in pharmacology that, humanity was engaging in at this time. But this isn't like, hey, cool, dope. Dan likes dope stream. That's not what I'm talking about here, because this shit gets really fucking deep. Right now, this whole interview is Danny just trying to come to terms to understand so he can really open the lid off. There's a pinned link if you guys want to download this for yourself. I've listened to this sucker like 4 times just so I can understand everything in here and get all the small details out. Yeah, absolutely. 904 Mike. I've heard about him before. He's a Jewish war historian, but I didn't know much. And there's so much information out there and only so much time in one's life, but it's on my list now. I'm going to check it out. But yeah, I'll stop jabbering and get back to this.
It's the Greek word, and it's these plants that contain these substances that, they found them in hair, painted on in hair because they're offerings.
And what was the what did they gain by taking these drugs, and what sort of what did they learn? What sort of enlightenment did they achieve? And what was the ends to the use of these drugs for them?
Yeah. We have instead of me making something up, you could read the Mithras liturgy in the Greek magical papyri, where it talks about what you'll see and how you should interact and what you have to do.
Oh, they had like a protocol.
Yeah. It's like a manual.
Wow.
Yeah. And you got to have the right things to bring with you because you got to make the drugs, right? You get there and first of all, you're going to be fasting for a certain number of days. Mm-hmm. And they put you through these repetitious songs, right? And we have these in the PGM. Where you're setting the images in your head. Remember, this is idolatry. Eidolon is the word for image, right? Mm-hmm. Image. And there's, so when we're on our snake venom and you've got a concoction and they're using tons of snake stuff. I got an entire author for you. Watch this. Philuminous is his name. Philuminous with a PH on the front. Yeah. He is a physician somewhere before the 4th century because they start quoting him in the 4th. Mm-hmm. And he's a physician who talks about the venoms. I've got a couple of slides of him.
This is where we get the word pharmacology.
Talks about the venoms that are used. Some great stuff.
The snake venoms were used as mind-altering drugs, or they were used as antidotes?
They were used as medicines.
Medicines.
Right. The Medusa really exists. Right? They're women. They're a group of women. These are Scythian tribes, by the way. Mm-hmm. What do I mean by that? Tribes that are, they were a horse culture, mobile, mm-hmm. and they ravaged people. That's how they, got what they needed.
And the Medusa were the ones that you said they had to kill a certain amount of men before they could get married?
It's the same tribes that are producing that specific group of women. They have this cult thing where they apply the medicine to their hair. They wear it in their hair, and they use arrows. And that poison can petrify you. And they'll drag you off, and they'll do things to you.
Like what? Eat your brain?
No, sexy stuff. They'll either mate or kill you.
Well,
Yeah. It's a shame to have to end up a relationship.
That's weird that back then you.
It's fucking great. So this is the part that my girlfriend loved telling me about. She actually hit me to Amon Hillman here, and she basically talks about these tribes of, these Scythian women rode around on horseback. Essentially, Amazonians is where we get the name kind of from today. They go in there and they go to villages and just plunder, take all this stuff. These are women, man, and they're women warriors. And they have no men in their cults, but they need to keep existing. So they take these poison arrows, shoot dude, drag him off. Dude's tripping. They use essentially a drug to make the man erect, and they all try to make babies out of him, and then they kill him. She thought that shit was hilarious, and I was like, so not much has changed. Anyway, I'll continue.
You would have to poison a man to have sex with him, right? Like, wouldn't a guy just want to have sex with some
these are people.
chick?
These are people being raided. Imagine being raided.
I mean, it's hard to rape a man if you're a woman, right?
So you got to give them drugs to make them hard when you're raping them, because you're probably going to kill them too.
That's kind of hard to imagine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In Euripides, he's got an account of these priestesses. Remember, we're talking the Black Sea.
We got to, by the way, for YouTube, we're going to have to mute the word rape. That's going to get us demonetized and get us shut down. That's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. Well, it's all right. We'll
Can
just
you edit that out?
Yeah, that's why I'm telling Steven right now.
Yeah, that's no problem. Just keep talking. It'll get muted. And,
By the way, I'm gonna get myself a kratom real quick. I need some Indonesian herbs.
Okay.
So, what effects did drug use have on the philosophy of Western society and the democratic forms of governance?
Yeah, so it's a part of the fabric of pushing society toward inspiration, looking for sources of inspiration. All the earliest Greek temples are temples of the muses. So that written word connection is very, very important. And magic, people want to know, what is magic, right? Classically. And classically, it's that control of logos. It's a control. And people think logos, oh, that's a Greek word, right? Oh, then the seminarians get all excited, you know what I mean? And they don't really know it, because seminarians don't read classical texts. The logos is that reason, that reckoning.
Okay.
So that's what, to me, that's what I studied so carefully. That's why classicists study ancient Greek. Yeah, they do.
Who is Solon?
Solon, he's a reformer. He's a rich reformer who basically turns and gives power back to the people. He was advised by, this guy on crack. He carried it around in the hoof of something. And it was a plant root that they said he ground up and snorted all the time. He advised Solon. And Solon's reforms ultimately become what you and I know as democracy. Yeah.
What is the proper definition of democracy in antiquity compared to our democracy today?
Yeah, it's the rule of the people if you want. It's the rule of the people. The demos is just the neighborhood. You know, Athens is divided up into demes.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The hood. You get a neighborhood speak. That's what democracy is. It's a neighborhood speak. And it's direct representation, too. And they've got all sorts of reforms like, look, you cannot take any money while you are a You know, part of the boule, part of
Right.
the council. You can't take any money, and you have to have terms and everything.
And I
It's what
believe
inspired Jefferson.
part of your book says that there was 300,000 people in Athens, right? Is that and then 10% of them were part of these councils?
That sounds right.
There was like 30,000 of them were part of these councils that made the rules and made the laws
Yeah,
and
right.
And
They have a couple of assemblies, the boule and the ecclesia. Yeah, which
Right.
becomes our word for church.
well, I loved the way that your book described the differences between our democratic republic that we have in America compared to their version of democracy. And you had all these people that would have to debate all of these ideas and rules and laws and punishment for crimes. And I think you said that people only were able to do this for 1 year at a time. They had like 1 year terms or
Yeah.
whatever.
It was different at different times, but
Right. Right. And what we have now is so far away from that. Very, very far away from that.
yeah. Well, we don't
It's-
have juries with 300 people either. Can you imagine that? Just big crowd of the people from the polis doing the city thing, right?
Right.
They're exercising their politeia. It's where we get our word politics, right? It's the functioning of the city.
And they were vehemently against people who could gain any sort of benefit in this system or make any sort of money or any sort of economic gain from this system to corrupt it. Like it was like their version.
I wish we could skip past this because but I don't know where to land to put it back on track. But essentially, Danny here is interested in forms of ancient government, which Eamon Hillman is not. He has a passing knowledge of, but only to get to his goal of, ancient Greek and in regards to recreational drug use. Those are his big things. And because he's also has a degree in biology, I think a doctorate in biology, he can see that these are actual things that actually happened. It wasn't just, baloney ceremony. These are actual drugs that are made. But Danny here is now interested in talking about democracy and stuff. And this isn't really what Eamon Hillman's, wheelhouse is at all. But I don't know where to skip it. So we have to bear with it. I don't want to. I think he's over in a bit because this part gets off track. Danny is an interviewer I don't like. I'll be honest. I like this curiosity. I like his open-mindedness, but he definitely has ADHD and he definitely moves around. You actually see this is the uncensored interview that he put out. The one on YouTube, a lot's cut out, but essentially he says he needs some herbs and he says he's going to take a kratom. So he's actually on a kind of like an opioid drug right at this point in time. And that's why his mind is wandering. Danny here. Dr. Eamon Hillman isn't on anything but coffee as far as I can tell.
Of democracy was essentially to protect humanity from itself.
Yeah, exactly. It put the brakes. It was the ultimate check and balance. Definitely. And it's what inspired our democracy, or the thing we call democracy. Yeah.
But
yeah.
our democracy is so much different. I mean, it's if you look at all the people that are in the government and have been in the government making decisions and making millions of dollars for so long,
Yes.
it is run by tyrants.
Yes, that's how you know, the Greeks said. They said, whoever is profiting, watch who's profiting, and you cannot have the running of the state with somebody profiting from it, because when you do, it becomes corrupt. They knew that. You have to keep that government sacred. You have to keep it sacred.
Right.
Yeah.
And Solon was one of the originals responsible for the creation of democracy.
Yeah, well, yeah, things that led to ultimately what you and I would say, voila, democracy.
And how long did this last?
You could argue that this is a process that doesn't start and end, but it's a process that cycles throughout time. And the deity, this is where it gets cool. The deity that we put on the hill is that warrior girl. Yeah, we put a warrior girl on the hill, and you know what she does? She nourishes the Serpent King Isn't that funny? She gives him her hyma,
What does this mean?
her blood. Drink my blood. Yeah, they're using blood as a medicinal. Yeah, the Virgin Queen. She's the one who raises that serpent king. Yeah, no, they've got him. You can go to Athens today, go to the top of look for the Erechtheum on the top of the place and be like, where is he? Where's the serpent king? He's there.
Who is the Serpent King? Stephen, can you find this guy?
Look for Erechthonius. Right.
Erechthonius?
Yeah.
Erechthonius.
He's from the ground, baby. Chthon. Chthon. When Jesus is on the cross and he's like, I am thirsty. Sabachthon.
All right.
That's what
he
Jesus
yells.
said when he was on the cross?
Yeah.
Is this in the Bible?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Why would I make this up?
Well, I'm not saying you're making it up. I'm just trying to distinguish the difference between what's in the Bible and what's in the text. And I assume that they're drastically different, right?
No, I will give you the hardcore evidence.
What is the
It's
difference?
just the text.
What
I'm
is
just going to bring you a Greek text, and this is from the biblical Greek text.
My question is, what is how big of a gap is there between the original texts and the Bible people read today?
Okay, so these are the texts that are ultimately assembled into what you call the Bible.
Right.
Those are the same thing, right? This is the
So
Greek.
there's only some pieces, like there's a huge load of ancient Greek texts, and only certain pieces are cherry picked for the Bible.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. What's the common thread that's
Yes.
uniting all of these things
Yes.
together? It's the cults, man, and the operation of the cults. They're driving the literature at the time. Yeah, they've got a hostage and they're bringing it in. And you can get that from the read. All you got to do is bring up those cults and their activities. The stuff the early Christians were doing, they're collecting blood. And this is from their own insiders who are telling us this. Eustathius tells us this. And he says, oh my God, he says, look what they're doing in these ceremonies. And he goes on to describe it, and I've described it in detail.
Okay, so my buddy is doing a stream right now, Paula, Outlaw Woman stream. I'm going to go ahead and throw her stream in there. I'll probably continue this on another day, but I just want to put like the last few minutes of the part I really wanted to get to. So hold on a second here. Okay. So first off, here is the Outlaw Woman stream here, right? Which I really like and hang out there. So I'm gonna put that link up. All right. The file linked at the top there, you can download this thing and listen to it in your own time. But what I really wanted to show off was this part here, which if I can feckin' find it. Sorry about the clickety keyboard in the background. So, why Jesus was arrested, according to Eamon Hellman here. It's really good, and I want to play that. So, and then I'll leave and I'll hang out at Paula's, and then I might come back tomorrow and play some more of this or something else. I know there's a small number of us that are interested in this stuff in our current community, but I will be there for you. I'll also probably go live a little bit earlier. And also, hey, Tala Crack, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I used to live in Tala, and I have some funny stories from that time I might share at some point. But I'm going to stop presenting this, and I'm going to open up. Share screen. Oh, of course. What am I doing? What am I doing, folks? Okay. I'm going to start them right there. And I'm going to share this. Okay. And play this.
If you had a time machine and you could go to any place in history, where's the first place you would go?
Yeah, I would go back to the Garden of Gethsemane.
The Garden of Gethsemane.
It's the public park where Jesus was arrested.
You are obsessed with this.
Yeah, I think I
You
need to find
constantly
it.
talk
Yeah.
about this moment when Jesus was arrested.
Yeah. It's why is that?
Is this in the Bible?
Yes, it is.
Also, dumb question. How
Yeah.
many versions of the modern Bible are there?
I don't know how many, but I can think of at least 12.
And what's the difference between them all? Why are there so many
It
versions?
depends on the time that they're translated. And if you'll notice, a lot of them will follow the earlier authors. Right? Bible scholars don't read anything outside of the Bible. So how good do you think their vocab is? How
Right.
good do you think their translation skills are?
Mhm.
Right. That's the problem. So those translations are generally pretty bad. And that's what I brought some examples of.
Okay.
And this is in the garden, actually, that I brought these slides for.
Okay.
And this is the Garden of Gethsemane. And where are we? We're with Jesus in the first. And he's being arrested.
Okay, so let's give some context.
Yeah.
Let's give some context to this.
Let's do
So who was Jesus and why and what is so good? What is so great about him?
Yeah, Jesus is a guy who walked around with 12 children and
All the time.
and prophets and a group of prophets. No, I'm just telling you what the text says.
He was just a guy who walked around with
Prophets and children.
So what was so great
he
about him?
called his disciples and he calls them his children constantly, right? Remember, God
So he's a pimp.
God blesses those who take care of the children, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
He takes care of these children.
he takes care of these children.
Okay.
There is a female underage called the Paidiska. When Jesus Christ is in his trial, his followers won't admit they're his followers, right? It's the whole, you're going to deny me, right? Jesus is all like, I'm going to get friggin' scandalized, right? And you're going to deny me when he's in the garden and he gets caught.
Mm-hmm.
And those three, Peter, James, and John, they're keeping watch, the text says. They're guarding at a distance while Jesus takes the naked boy that's been assigned to him. That's what the text says, like a slave.
So the depiction of this event is only in one version of the Bible. Is that right? Is it Matthew?
No, it's in multiple, but the kid is only in Mark.
Only in Mark.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's only like
Yeah.
2 sentences,
And-
right? Stephen, can you pull up the passage?
I've got it here.
Oh, you've got it there. Okay.
1451. It's that first line.
I can pull up the passages and show the different versions.
Yeah,
and
let's
how
do
it
that.
translates as well. What passage is it?
Mark 1451.
1451. All right, cool.
Okay. A young man, what is it? Can you blow it up?
Yeah.
A young man wearing nothing but a linen garment was following Jesus when they seized him. That's all it says.
Yeah. Now look at the Greek.
Oh yeah.
And it says, a young boy was assigned to him, having wrapped his penis with a medicated bandage, and they arrested him.
A medicated bandage is what it says.
Sindon. Yeah, I've got
Okay, so I'm
I've
comparing
got the.
yours to what this one says. So visibility, I can turn on Greek as well.
Okay.
I would love to see how the this online Bible matches yours.
Check out the.
Is okay. So right here, is that exactly what you're reading?
Yeah, that's what I'm reading.
Okay. Which one of those Greek words is wrapped in a medicated linen?
Epigumno. This is on the. Okay, let's just start on the first line.
Maybe
Nea-
should we go to his computer, Steve?
I'm
That's
punching it up.
that's it.
Okay.
The first. Let's go to the first one. The second word in is neoniskos, and that is what we call a diminutive. So
Neoniskos.
it's a little of something else. And what is a neonias? A neonias is a boy.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a little boy.
Okay.
And they called Paidiska female prostitutes who were underage.
Okay.
And when I say underage, I don't mean
Did they define
under
underage down
18.
back then?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not under 18. It's before.
So okay.
right?
So that was their word for before.
Age was they didn't set a year,
Right. Okay. Got it.
right?
The translation here says young.
And was there was there any sort of moral boundaries when it came to sex or prostitution based on the pre?
Not from what I've seen.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, generally, in
Nothing.
different civilizations, you can still, like in Athens, you can still prosecute for somebody coercing what you and I would say is underage, them before puberty. Yeah, that's still, you can get in trouble for that.
Okay.
But it's not like it's not like there's compensation involved because, it's not like a crime like you and I consider a crime. It's more like a civil crime. Yeah.
Okay.
Or like being punched.
Right.
Yeah. You've damaged somebody, so you can give them reparations for damaging them.
Okay.
That's what you do. But the pedagogy in antiquity, pedagogue, that person who raises, educates the children, right? That person, that's the Centauron, they called them. The centaur. It's their word for past.
Which means what?
Oh, with children.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And Chiron, remember Chiron, he's a centaur who is the master of Heracles. And now you know why Heracles has his boy Hylas. Do you understand? The sacred mystery is passed from generation to generation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, what was so special about Jesus? He was a guy who walked around with kids,
Yeah. Apostles.
apostles.
Yeah. So, what was so special about him?
Was he the only one doing that?
What was so what was so special about it? Like, oh, and that's perfect. No, he's not. It's called being a laestes.
What is a laestes?
He was crucified between two of these. A laestes is defined, and I've got it on the next. Let's see. Oh, here, look. This follows my presentation. So this is what the boy that was with Jesus. Boy, this is what he was with him doing. He's following him. Notice they use this term sunakuletho.
And
right? Where
do you get this from? This image?
Thank you to the Victorians from Oxford who have given us this wonderful, fantastic lexicon of ancient Greek.
Okay.
1850s.
Okay.
After that book that you just had was
okay.
was written.
Okay.
And here it is. And notice that it's using soldiers. It's using term for soldiers and slaves, right? So this kid is not just hanging out with Jesus, right? People have tried to explain this for a while. What was the kid doing with Jesus, right? Okay. Anyway, let's go on to the next one.
Double click. There you go. Now hit the green
blow
button.
it up. Look, this is what the kid is wrapped on his gumnos. And you say, what's gumnos? Gumnos
Fine
is
cloth, usually linen.
Yeah. Fine cloth. Look where look at the second line. It says busines telemones, right?
Uh-huh.
So they're wrapping things in this
Used for
fine
mummies.
cloth, right?
And surgeon's bandages.
And bandages. And that's where I get it. On my end, when I'm reading the medical authors, they're all saying that you impregnate linen with drugs that you're going to treat the wound with, right? This kind of makes sense.
You impregnate women.
No, linen. I'm sorry.
You impregnate linen
Don't impregnate the women.
with drugs.
Yeah.
To treat wounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
that makes sense.
this is the original text, and this right here is the translation that we have right now, which is, I'll punch it up for people, nothing but a linen garment.
Yeah. Notice how they took it from a bandage and turned it into
Who did this? Who's responsible for this?
crappy translators. People who do not work with the Greek. If you bring up the next
Is this an accident or is this intentional?
No,
These
it's
translations.
intentional stupidity.
Are they intentionally leaving this shit out of the Bible? Because
No, it's bad training.
okay.
It's just bad training.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go. Now watch this one. Okay, so that last one had businos on it. Well, what is the businos? It's fine linen bandage, right? They give you at the top. But then look at the reference on the second line. That's Euripides Bacchae. Okay, so this is something that they're using within some kind of religious ritual. And look at number 2 at the bottom. Roman numeral number 2, Porphyros. That's Hesychius. And who's Hesychius? Hesychius is a lexicographer from the 4th and 5th who comes in, and he has access to these ancient Greek lexicography texts, right? So before anybody was having any kind of substantial literature, the Greeks were already at the level, and these are ancient Greeks, they're already at the level of creating a language that is so highly specialized, we're still trying to translate it.
These translations that you've just pulled up, what does this have to do with, or what does this tell you about the scene of Jesus in the park?
That's exactly what this verse says right here. It says,
Can you zoom in on that a little bit?
Yeah, can we?
There you go. There you go. You just did it.
Yeah, and so he's, what happened? So Jesus is there, and it says the kid dropped the bandage and ran off naked. That's exactly what that says. The
Okay.
kid dropped the bandage and ran off naked.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it says specifically in 51 that it was epigumnos, and epigumnos is on his private parts.
An epigumna, which is the bandage that's soaked in drugs.
The sindon that's on there, right? And why? Why is Jesus with the kid? Remember when he first walks in the garden, he falls over, he stumbles over, and he's in pain. He's going through the exact same symptoms that doctors will describe
Jesus is?
of the drug users. Yeah, it's in this chapter. It's in Mark 14. Yeah.
So he's tripping.
It says that he's exceptionally fearful, right? So it looks like he's in some kind of psychotic fear, and he's screaming about, take it, don't let me do it. And he's with his kid. He's with this kid at the time, right? And he ends up with stuff on his face, stuff that is like big drops of porphyron.
I'm talking about bodily fluids.
Blood is how
Blood.
it's typically, no, that's how it's translated. It's not the blood that he's got, it's purple. And he's got an antidote from the kids. That's the galene, is the kid's seed. Heracles has to have Hylas. He has to have his boy. Zeus has to have Ganymede. On the Prypix.
So this is incredibly interesting. So essentially, Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane. Okay. Peter, James, and John are at the front gate sleeping, even though God told them to be on watch. Jesus, whatever. Jesus tells them to be on the watch out. They fall asleep. Okay. This is all in the English Bible too. Okay. Jesus is in there with this boy, and he's got this garment on him that's like a linen that they would dress mummies in, and it's soaked in some kind of something, some kind of chemical or whatever, right? Now, when Jesus is arrested, he says, I am not a laestes. I am not a human trafficker. Okay. Now, let's say he's telling the truth. Let's say that, in this scene, he's already tripping out on this stuff. He's got the purple in his eyes. What I believe and what Dr. Hillman believes is at that point in time, Jesus is on a death bringer, right? He's using these chemicals, these drugs, to commune with his Father, God, okay? He's one of many prophets that are around at the time, okay? I think he's in this tripped out state. He's trying to get the antidote so he can come out of this death bringer state, okay? At the same time, he's got, I think these Jewish, clerics, respected men of the community that are looking for him, for whatever reason. That could be debated back and forth. We can only go with what is written, right? And so what's happening here, right, is he's having like the worst day ever. It's 4 a.m. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane. This is after the Last Supper. He's tripping out on this stuff. These guys come to arrest him. The antidote runs off with the garment gone. Okay. So he's left in this state with this death bringer on him. Okay. And he's tripping out. He's incredibly fearful because he's literally on the edge of death. Okay. Very interesting stuff. Now, Eamon Hillman tends to go in the direction that, okay, Jesus walked around with these apostles, these children. They're depicted in books and stuff as having beards and being very old, but the reality is they lived 30, 40, 50 years after Jesus died. Jesus was 33. So the reality is they were all young men, teenagers, 13, 12, 11, 14, that kind of age. And he also, we know Mary Magdalene hung out with the prostitutes and stuff. Okay. I think he was on a spiritual path, and I think his antidote ran away. Is what I think. I don't think he was a pederast, right? Because we have nothing that says that. We have nothing that says that, right? So I think it's very cultish. I think it's very interesting. But really, what's more interesting is how throughout time, and this is just one example of how these original Greek documents of the Bible have been translated poorly, either willfully or mistakenly. And so we don't get the real picture of the Old Testament or the New Testament for that matter, right? For example, like God is very different in the Old Testament as he's portrayed in the New Testament. Like God was a bit of a fucking troll in the First Testament of the Bible, as Christians call it, right? For example, like Job, let's test Job's faithfulness to me, says the devil. So they put this poor man through hell. And in the end, they say, okay, well, we'll give everything back to you. Well, okay, but what about his PTSD from, having everything ruined and taken away from the man, And also, like, it's, God, my memory is killing me, but I'm gonna Google this real quick, and then I'll leave, I promise. Sacrificing. Right? Lots of sacrificing in the Old Testament. Sacrifice your son. Sacrifice, Isaac to me. Okay. Show me that you really love me. Sacrifice your son to me. I'm God. He's like, well, okay. If you say so, God, let me go ahead and just kill my son, Isaac, my favorite son. At the last minute, God's like, no, bro, I was just joking. Oh my God, you were really going to do it. You were really going to do it. All right. Talk to you later, bro. That's what happens. Right. Or, God gets pretty pissed off that he doesn't like the way the world is going. So he just floods the fucker. All right. Grab 2 of every animal, male and female, put them on an ark. And I believe the ark actually existed. I believe that absolutely happened during the Younger Dryas period. I believe it absolutely happened. None of this is fantasy. If people want to say that these things didn't happen, that's their right. I think these things did absolutely happen. Right. Whether or not, there's one God or any gods or the Christian God is the right God, that's all debated back through history. But personally, what I want when I'm learning is I want the truth. That's what I want from everything, is the truth, right? I don't want subjective truth. I don't want truth put through the strainer of somebody else's mind with their biases. And I want to get to as much as I can to the core reality of what actually happened and took place. Okay. And without that, I can't make a proper decision. I can't make an informed decision on anything. And that's what's so important, right? So I think it's really interesting. And above being interesting, I think it's closer to the truth, Anyway, I'm going to go over to this outlaw stream because Paula's amazing. Miss Cassie's amazing. And I don't want to step on their toes, but I think I will come back tomorrow if I'm feeling okay. Anybody who doesn't know me, I have Crohn's disease. And so if it's acting up, I won't come online, but otherwise I will. And if you want to talk more about this, we can, or I might just play something completely different and, whatever. But anyway, thanks for hanging out. Appreciate everybody. Thank you so much. I think you guys are all awesome. And anyway, if you guys want to download the whole thing and listen to it, I've listened to it a few times and I've joined his own channel. The only problem I don't like about Eamon is he like everybody else does, he puts his innate biases into everything. And when he puts that innate bias into it, you're getting he will actually kind of ache him back to his younger self, and he'll preach on what he believes this means, which is perfectly fine. But I just I want that part is subjective. I want the facts. What does it actually say in ancient Greek? And for me to unequivocally know that, I would have to learn ancient Greek. But I do think he's being honest in his translations. Anyway, Where does the evidence lead, Mike? That I do not know, sir. That I do not know. Like I said, and what I didn't say, I stole this from my girlfriend, Missy. She says, I'm not necessarily looking for the answers. I just like the questions. And I think if you think about the questions enough, you're going to be led to a series of different answers. But I think people are unequivocal. They're always trying to find an answer. Like when it comes to the phenomenon of UFOs or any kind of quote unquote paranormal phenomenon, people like to fill in the gaps where they don't have answers. They want to fill in the gap with an answer. They don't want something unquestioned, just sitting out there in the ether. I'm perfectly happy with that. I'm okay with there not being an answer yet, or there may never be an answer. But I really love the questions. And so thanks for watching with me today, guys. It's gone up to about 10 people, gone down to 4. It's been great, but it isn't about the number of people. It's just about the hang. Thanks so much, folks. Talk to you later.